The day started quietly. It was the kind of morning that seemed ordinary to anyone passing through the streets, but carried its own rhythm for those paying attention. The city slowly came to life. Street vendors arranged their goods. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the air, and the distant sound of buses moving along the roads created a low hum that seemed to blend with the early chatter of people on their way to work. Among the crowd was a man who moved with a certain calmness, someone who had grown used to walking through life with eyes that observed rather than judge. He lived in a small, simple apartment that felt more like a temporary space than a home. The walls were plain, the furniture functional. He had little need for decoration, not because he didn't care, but because he had learned to keep his life uncluttered. His mornings were quiet rituals. Wake up, make tea, and sit by the window for a few moments before heading out. He enjoyed watching the streets from above, noticing how the city stirred into motion, the way people interacted, the small gestures that went unnoticed by most. Work was a steady routine. He didn't seek excitement, and yet he carried out his duties with care and honesty. Over time, people around him had come to see him as reliable, someone they could count on. He wasn't loud or commanding. He wasn't the type to boast or share personal stories. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, his words were simple but meaningful. Life had taught him to protect his thoughts, to value silence, and to keep the parts of himself that mattered most carefully hidden. Across the city, a woman was beginning her morning differently. Her home was alive with activity sounds of family members preparing for the day. Doors opening and closing, conversations overlapping in a way that made the space feel full. She moved through it with a kind of practiced grace, carrying out responsibilities while keeping a smile ready, even when she felt tired or stressed. Life demanded much from her, yet she maintained a quiet hope, the kind that refused to be entirely lost in daily routine. She had dreams that felt large and uncontainable, but as time passed, responsibilities shaped her choices. Work, family, obligations all left their mark. Yet, beneath it all, there remained a spark she hadn't lost. Some mornings, when the sun filtered through her window and touched the floor just right, she felt that spark ignite for a moment, a gentle reminder of who she was beneath the expectations and routines. That day, neither of them expected their paths to cross. Life had been moving forward predictably, and nothing about that morning hinted at change. Yet fate, quiet and unassuming, often works in small, unnoticed ways. They met in a place that seemed unremarkable, a waiting area that smelled faintly of dust and old paper. People came and went without paying attention to each other, the room filled with murmurs and shuffling feet. He arrived first, choosing a seat in a quiet corner. He didn't pull out a phone immediately. Instead, he watched, observing the small movements of people around him. A hand brushing hair from a forehead, the way someone fidgeted with a bag strap. The brief glance of impatience as a clock ticked seconds away. She entered later, slightly out of breath, scanning for a seat. Most were taken. Only one remained, beside him, and after a brief hesitation, she walked toward it. Their shoulders nearly touched as she settled down. There was a small awkwardness in the proximity, simple recognition of the other's presence. "Sorry," she said softly, adjusting her bag. He nodded. "It's okay." That was all. Just 2 words. But they carried a calmness that neither expected. Neither had any sense that this small moment would leave a lasting impression. The room filled and emptied around them. People were called one by one. Occasionally, she glanced at the clock, clearly anxious. He noticed, not intrusive, just aware. The silence between them was comfortable, not forced. She spoke first again. "They're taking longer than usual today." "Yes," he replied simply. "Seems so." A small pause followed, but it was lighter than before. It felt natural, like they were sharing a quiet understanding. She smiled faintly. "At least the chairs aren't completely terrible," he chuckled quietly. "That's something to be grateful for." The conversation was simple, ordinary, yet each word left a subtle mark. When her name was called, she stood up quickly, hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "It was nice talking to you." "You too," he replied, She walked away, and he watched her leave, feeling a strange lightness he hadn't expected. There was curiosity there, but more than that. It's a gentle comfort in the brief connection. Later, she found herself thinking about him while making her evening tea. His quiet manner, the way he listened without judgment, and the soft simplicity of his words stayed in her mind. She shook her head, reminding herself not to overthink. Life was already complicated enough without adding imagined possibilities. Days went by. The city moved on, but small coincidences began to nudge them together again. They met at a shop by chance, both reaching for a similar item on the shelf. He recognized her first. "Hi," he said, unsure if she remembered him. She looked up and smiled. "Oh, it's you." They laughed softly, easing into a conversation that flowed naturally. Simple topics at first: the weather, the neighborhood, small observations about the city. Then slowly, more personal details crept in. She spoke of work, the long hours, and the balancing act of daily responsibilities. He listened, attentive and patient, never interrupting, never offering advice. Simply being present. "That sounds exhausting," he said gently. "It is," she admitted. "But it's part of life, I guess. We keep going." "Yes," he said. "And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes just going forward is all we can do." She studied his face, noting the calm sincerity in his expression. "You don't talk much about yourself," she observed. He smiled faintly. "There isn't much to say." "I don't think that's true," she replied quietly. "Everyone has a story." Her words lingered with him long after they parted that day. From that moment, our paths began to cross more often, in ways that felt unplanned but not entirely accidental. At a market, on the street, at a bus stop. Each encounter was brief, yet meaningful. They learned each other's rhythms, knew when the other preferred silence. When conversation was welcome, when a smile could bridge the distance between them, neither pushed for more than the moment allowed. Neither demanded explanations or tried to control the pace. There was beauty in the unspoken understanding. In letting something grow without force or rush, he found himself thinking of her unexpectedly during the day, her voice a calm presence in his mind. She noticed the same, recalling the gentle steadiness he brought into the small encounters that now felt important. They were aware of a growing connection, though neither had the words yet to define it. One evening, as the sky turned a soft shade of orange and the streetlights began to glow, they found themselves standing near a quiet corner. The air carried a sense of stillness, of a moment just stretching before them. She looked at him and said softly, "I'm glad we keep seeing each other." He nodded without hesitation. "So am I." They lingered there, neither wanting to move, both aware that this beginning, so quiet and unassuming, was significant. It was not a story of dramatic love at first sight. It was simpler, subtler, and perhaps even more important. It was the beginning of something real, something patient, something that would grow slowly, carrying both of them forward in ways they could not yet imagine. Days turned into weeks, and their small encounters began to shape the edges of their lives. There was a natural rhythm to it, a pattern that neither tried to create nor resist. Every meeting, every brief conversation seemed to pull them closer in ways they did not yet fully understand. Life continued around them, loud and chaotic at times. But within those moments together, there was a quietness, a pause that felt rare and precious. He began to notice the small things about her. How she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, how her eyes would brighten for a brief second when she smiled, how her voice had a rhythm that made ordinary words sound gentle and warm. She, in turn, observed him with equal care. She saw how he carried himself with calmness, how he listened without distraction, how his presence could feel reassuring, even in a crowded room. It was not love in a dramatic sense yet. They did not declare feelings or make bold promises. It was something quieter, something that lived in gestures, in glances, in shared laughter and comfort. There was trust building in small increments. A trust that came from being seen without judgment and being accepted for who they truly were. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves sheltering under the awning of a small cafe. The sky was heavy, the kind of gray that seemed to press down on the city. People hurried by, umbrellas snapping open and closed. They had met by chance, each drawn to the same corner. And now they stood there together, avoiding the rain yet not wanting to part. "It's coming down hard," she said, watching the drops splatter against the pavement. "Yes," he agreed. "It's better than getting soaked, I suppose." They laughed, the sound small but genuine, cutting through the soft hum of the rain. Silence followed, but it was a comfortable silence. Neither felt the need to fill it. After a few minutes, she tilted her head slightly, looking at him with curiosity. "Do you ever just walk in the rain to feel it? Not minding getting wet?" He considered this for a moment. "Sometimes," he said finally, "it feels honest in a way. You can't control it, can't hide from it. You just experience it." She smiled, appreciating the thought. "I like that. It makes sense." They continued walking together after the rain eased, letting the streets dry beneath their steps. Conversation flowed naturally about small things, at first the pattern of city life, favorite corners of the neighborhood, meals they liked, books they had read. Yet slowly the topics deepened. She spoke about her fears and worries, the exhaustion that came from trying to balance so many things. He shared small parts of his own life too, not everything, but enough for her to feel he trusted her in some measure. Over time, these moments multiplied. A shared cup of coffee here, a quiet walk there, a conversation held while waiting for the bus. Each interaction was simple, ordinary, yet it left a mark, a sense of being seen and understood in a world that often felt rushed and indifferent. One evening, they happened to meet at a small park. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Children played in the distance, their laughter ringing through the air. They sat on a bench, neither saying much at first, just enjoying the calm and the fading light. She spoke first. "It's strange," she said quietly, "how life brings people together in unexpected ways." He nodded. "Yes. I never expected to meet someone like you, just by chance." Her lips curved into a soft smile. "It feels like more than chance sometimes." He looked at her, considering her words. "I feel the same," he admitted. "It's subtle, but it matters." They continued to sit there, letting the words hang in the air, feeling the connection without needing to name it. There was comfort in this quiet understanding, a reassurance that perhaps something meaningful was beginning to take root. As weeks turned into months, they grew closer. Not in a way that was rushed or desperate, but in a way that was steady and natural. They began to anticipate each other's presence, to notice absences, to feel a subtle longing for the next encounter. Yet, they respected each other's space. Understanding that life carried its own responsibilities and challenges, their conversations became more personal over time. She shared stories from her childhood, small memories that brought a smile or a moment of reflection. He spoke of experiences that had shaped him, moments that taught patience, resilience, and the quiet strength of observing life closely. In these exchanges, they discovered common values, shared sensibilities, and the kind of understanding that forms the foundation of deep connection. One evening, they attended a small community event together. Music played softly in the background, and people moved about, chatting and laughing. They stayed close, moving in tandem without planning it. She pointed out a small detail she liked, a flower decoration on a table. He noticed the way her eyes lit up and felt a warmth he could not easily describe. There was no need for words. The shared experience was enough. They walked home afterward, the city quiet in the late hours. Streetlights cast long shadows, and the air held the faint chill of early evening. She spoke about her hopes for the future, not extravagant dreams, but small, meaningful aspirations that mattered to her. He listened, offering understanding and encouragement without overstepping. There was a balance in their interactions, a harmony that felt natural and reassuring. Sometimes they simply sat together in silence, watching people pass, noticing small details, or just enjoying the moment. In those moments, words were unnecessary. The comfort of shared presence was enough. They began to recognize the importance of these quiet times, understanding that connection did not always require expression or declaration. Their friendship deepened, carried by small gestures of care. He remembered her favorite coffee and brought it when they met by chance. She noticed when he seemed tired and offered a gentle word of encouragement. These acts were simple, yet they reinforced the bond forming between them. Neither sought to rush or label it, and perhaps that was why it grew stronger. They began to see each other more deliberately, though always with care and respect. Sometimes it was intentional, like choosing to meet at a park or a quiet cafe. Other times it remained accidental, the universe weaving their paths together in subtle ways. Each encounter, intentional or not, reinforced the growing sense of connection. One afternoon they found themselves at a quiet bookshop. The smell of paper and ink filled the air. They wandered between shelves, sharing thoughts about books they liked, authors they admired, and stories that had touched them. He noticed the passion in her voice, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of a character she loved. She noticed his careful attention, the way he remembered details she shared, the way he responded with thoughtfulness rather than empty praise. In these small, shared experiences, they discovered a deeper understanding of each other. It was not the kind of love that demands grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was subtle, patient, and grounded in reality. They learned to appreciate the value of time spent together, the beauty of ordinary moments, and the quiet joy of being truly seen. Even as life carried on around them with its demands and challenges, they found solace in their connection. They laughed at small absurdities, offered comfort during difficult times, and celebrated small victories together. This growing bond was not loud or flashy, but it was steady and real. By the time the weeks had fully passed, they both recognized the change in their lives. The ordinary days felt brighter. Moments that once seemed insignificant now carried meaning. The presence of the other became a quiet anchor in the midst of life's chaos. They did not need to define it fully, but both understood that something meaningful had begun a connection that, if nurtured, could grow into something lasting and profound. In the end, it was the subtle, patient moments that mattered most. The shared laughter, the quiet understanding, the simple presence that offered comfort and joy. It was a connection built on respect, empathy, and gentle care. Neither rushed, neither forced, and yet the bond grew, laying the foundation for a deeper relationship that both of them would come to value beyond measure. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. But it was real, and in its quiet way, it was beautiful. As time passed, life began to introduce its usual tests and challenges. Their connection, once simple and smooth, now faced the subtle pressures of reality. Responsibilities piled up, unexpected events appeared, and moments together became harder to find. It was not a sudden catastrophe, but rather a series of small disruptions that made them question timing and circumstance. He found himself more occupied with work, longer hours that left him physically drained, though mentally alert. Yet, even amidst the busyness, he noticed her absence in a way that surprised him. He realized that the days when they did not meet or speak felt emptier, quieter, as if some part of the rhythm of his life had paused. She too felt the same pang, a quiet ache in moments, when she expected to see his familiar presence. The subtle connection they had nurtured had grown into something meaningful, something difficult to ignore. One day, their paths did not cross at the usual cafe, nor on the streets where they often met. She waited longer than usual, a sense of worry settling in her chest. The hours passed slowly, each minute feeling heavier than the last. He, unaware at the time, was caught up in work that had unexpectedly demanded extra attention. When he finally realized the time, he felt a twinge of regret, wished that things could have been different. When they eventually met again, there was a quiet tension. Neither spoke immediately, the pause speaking volumes about the distance the world had placed between them. She looked at him with a mixture of relief and frustration, not at him personally, but at circumstance itself. He noticed the subtle frown, the brief shadow over her usually bright expression. "I've missed our usual chats," she admitted quietly. "I know," he replied softly. "I've been thinking about them too. I didn't mean for things to get so busy." They shared a quiet smile, an acknowledgement that life sometimes intrudes even on the most cherished routines. It was not dramatic, but it was real. And in that reality, they understood that connection required patience and care. Over the following days, they faced small misunderstandings. Words were misinterpreted, intentions doubted, and moments of insecurity crept in. They had never experienced conflict before, and navigating these emotions was a new challenge. At first, both were hesitant to express feelings, fearing that it might damage the fragile connection they had built. Yet avoidance only amplified the tension. One evening, after a brief disagreement about meeting times, they sat together on a quiet bench in a small park. The sky was turning to shades of deep blue, the city lights starting to glow in the distance. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not unpleasant. Both knew the moment required honesty, the kind that comes from care rather than pride. "I don't like feeling this way," she said softly, glancing at him. "I don't like when we misunderstand each other." He nodded. "Neither do I think. We need to be open about what we feel, even if it's uncomfortable." She took a deep breath. "I don't want to lose what we have because of small things." "You mean more to me than I realized." He felt a warmth rise in his chest. "You mean a lot to me, too. I've been worried about how busy things have become, about not being here enough, but I want to work through it, together." That evening, a gentle understanding settled between them. They realized that love, even in its quiet form, is not immune to challenges. It requires effort, patience, and communication. And though they had faced moments of tension, the foundation of their bond was strong enough to support them. They began to make small, deliberate choices to nurture their connection. Even amidst busy days, they found ways to check in with each other, to send messages that reminded the other of their presence and care. They discovered the power of small gestures. A cup of coffee delivered, a note left for the other, a shared smile across a crowded street. These actions reinforced the subtle but growing love between them. One rainy night, as the city was quiet and the streets glistened under streetlights, they met under the awning of a small bakery. The rain created a soft rhythm around them, the sound comforting and steady. They watched the drops fall, and for a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "It's strange how life throws obstacles in the way of things we care about." He nodded. "Yes, but it also reminds us what's worth holding on to." The conversation moved naturally from there, exploring fears, hopes, and the reality of their everyday lives. They spoke with honesty, recognizing that vulnerability was not weakness, but a necessary part of connection. Each word, each glance, strengthened the invisible threads tying them together. Over time, they learned to balance their lives with care for each other. He discovered that moments of pause, even if brief, could mean more than hours spent apart. She realized that patience and understanding could sustain the connection even when circumstances were challenging. Their interactions became less about convenience and more about intention, each choice reinforcing the commitment to nurture what they had. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the outside world seemed too loud or demanding, but they learned to confront these feelings together, to speak openly and listen with empathy. The trust that had developed in earlier days now became a guiding force, helping them navigate the complexities of modern life while maintaining the delicate balance of their connection. One afternoon, they visited a quiet art gallery. The walls were adorned with paintings and photographs, each piece telling a story without words. As they moved through the gallery, they shared impressions and thoughts, discovering not just the art, but also new layers of understanding in each other. He admired her perspective, the way she noticed details others might miss. She appreciated his patience, the way he considered each piece thoughtfully before sharing his own view. In these moments, the connection deepened, not in grand gestures, but in shared presence and appreciation. Even ordinary activities became meaningful when shared. Walking through crowded streets, cooking a simple meal together, or sitting quietly in a park became opportunities to strengthen their bond. They learned that love is not only in dramatic declarations, but in the subtle attention to each other's presence, the care in small actions, and the willingness to face life's realities together. As weeks passed, they found a rhythm that accommodated life's challenges while nurturing their bond. They celebrated small victories, comforted each other during difficulties, and shared moments of joy without expectation. The connection had moved beyond the initial excitement of discovery into a deeper, more resilient stage. It was a love grounded in understanding, patience, and mutual respect. By the end of this period, both recognized that the obstacles they faced had not weakened their bond, but had strengthened it. They had learned the importance of communication, the value of patience, and the necessity of intentional care. The love that had started quietly and subtly now held depth and resilience, capable of withstanding the trials of ordinary life in the quiet moments. When they were together without distraction, they often reflected on the journey so far, not in dramatic terms, but in the gentle realization that love, in its truest form, grows through understanding, effort, and shared experiences. The story of their connection was not marked by grand gestures, but by the steady accumulation of moments that mattered, the consistent presence of care, and the unspoken commitment to nurture what they had discovered together. Through challenges, misunderstandings, and the pressures of life, their bond matured. It became a source of comfort and strength, a quiet certainty in an unpredictable world. They discovered that love is not always about excitement or drama, but about patience, respect, and the willingness to face life's realities side by side. This understanding became the foundation upon which the next stages of their story would be built. A foundation that promised hope, resilience, and a deep, enduring connection with time. The small challenges and misunderstandings they faced began to transform into opportunities for growth and deeper connection. They had learned how to communicate honestly, to share feelings without fear, and to respect each other's space while maintaining closeness. The lessons of patience and empathy were now fully understood, and both felt the bond between them growing stronger with every passing day. It was a quiet evening when they found themselves walking along a familiar street, the city lights reflecting softly on the pavement after a recent drizzle. They moved side by side, not speaking at first, letting the comfortable silence settle between them. Then she spoke, her voice calm and thoughtful. "I feel like we've come a long way together. Even with everything that happens in life, we still find our way back to each other." He nodded, glancing at her. "Yes, it hasn't been easy, but I think that's part of what makes this real. We've had to work for it, care for it, and understand each other. That's why it matters more than anything else." They paused near a small fountain, the gentle trickle of water adding a serene background to their conversation. She smiled, a quiet, soft smile that reflected both relief and hope. "I think I've realized something important. Love isn't about always feeling happy or free from problems. It's about being willing to face them together." He looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes, the gentle honesty that had always drawn him in. "Exactly. It's about commitment, about choosing each other every day, even when life is complicated. And I want to choose you." Her hand brushed his, not forced, just a light touch that spoke volumes. "I choose you too," she said softly, and in that moment, there was a sense of quiet certainty between them, a shared understanding that this connection was no longer just a subtle bond, but something worth protecting and nurturing from that day forward. They approached their relationship with more intention. They made time for each other despite busy schedules, finding small ways to show care and appreciation. Even ordinary moments became significant. A shared meal, a quiet walk, or a brief conversation over coffee was an opportunity to deepen the trust and connection. They had worked so hard to build one weekend. They decided to spend a day exploring a nearby town they both loved but had never visited together. The morning was filled with laughter as they navigated streets lined with small shops, local cafes, and colorful markets. They shared stories about places they had visited in the past, discovering new layers of understanding about each other's experiences and personalities. It was a day of joy, but also a day that strengthened the bond that had already begun to feel like home. During a quiet moment in a small park, they sat on a bench, overlooking a pond, watching ducks glide across the water. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking about how far we've come. From those first chance meetings to this, It's amazing how life can surprise you. He smiled, reaching out to gently hold her hand. It is amazing. And I think the best part is that it's real. It's not a story we read in books or see in movies. It's ours, built step by step, through patience, care, and understanding. They spent hours walking and talking, sharing hopes for the future, discussing small dreams, and imagining a life where they could continue to support and grow with each other. There was no rush, no pressure, just the calm assurance that whatever came next, they would face it together, back in the city. They continued to integrate their lives in subtle but meaningful ways. They met for quiet dinners, shared early morning walks, and found comfort in knowing that they could rely on each other. Each gesture, no matter how small, reinforced their commitment and deepened the affection they felt. They also began to meet each other's families in small, comfortable settings. Both were careful to take these steps slowly, ensuring that their connection remained strong and that the introduction of others did not create pressure or distraction. These interactions were filled with warmth, mutual respect, and a sense of growing trust that extended beyond the two of them. Challenges still arose, as life rarely allows a perfect path. Work demands, unexpected responsibilities, and minor misunderstandings tested their patience. Yet each time, they faced these moments with honesty, listening, and empathy. They had learned that communication was not just about speaking, but about understanding and responding with care. This approach strengthened their connection, creating a resilience that could withstand life's ups and downs. One evening, after a long week, they found themselves sitting together in a quiet cafe, sipping tea and reflecting on their journey. "I never imagined I could feel this way," she said softly. "It's not about perfection. It's about knowing that we can be there for each other, even when things are messy." He nodded, smiling gently. "Yes, it's about being present, being patient, and caring deeply. And I want to keep doing that every day with you." They lingered in that moment, savoring the simplicity of their connection. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic confessions, just a quiet, steady love that had grown from small, meaningful moments and careful attention. They realized that this was the kind of love that lasted, the kind that could carry them through the uncertainties of life. Over time, they began to plan for the future together, discussing goals, aspirations, and ways to support each other. They spoke openly about challenges they might face, finding solutions together and reinforcing their trust. Each conversation, each plan, was an affirmation of their commitment, a step toward a shared life built on mutual respect and understanding. Even in the busiest moments, they found ways to maintain their connection. A simple message during the day, a thoughtful gesture, or a shared meal became expressions of their growing bond. These small acts were the threads that wove their lives together, creating a tapestry of care, trust, and affection. One afternoon, they decided to volunteer together at a local community project. The experience brought them closer, not just to each other, but to the world around them. They discovered new sides of each other, the patience in helping others, the joy in small achievements, and the empathy that had always been present but now found expression in shared action. This experience reinforced the depth of their connection, showing that their bond extended beyond personal comfort into meaningful engagement with the world. Through these experiences, they understood that love was not just an emotion, but an ongoing choice, a series of actions and decisions that reflected care, respect, and commitment. They realized that challenges were inevitable, but their willingness to face them together made the connection stronger and more resilient. As weeks turned into months, the quiet assurance of their relationship became a source of stability and joy. They cherished ordinary moments, celebrated small victories, found comfort in the knowledge that they could rely on each other. The connection that began with chance meetings and simple conversations had evolved into a partnership grounded in trust, patience, and mutual understanding. In the evenings, they often sat together, reflecting on their journey. There was a calm contentment in knowing that their love had grown steadily, without rush or force, shaped by respect, empathy, and shared experiences. They understood that the beauty of their connection lay not in drama or spectacle, but in the quiet, consistent presence of care and commitment, they had chosen each other. Again and again, in both small and significant ways. And in that choice, they found a love that was patient, resilient, and deeply satisfying. It was a love that could endure challenges, celebrate joys, and provide a foundation for a shared life. Built on understanding and compassion, this stage of their story marked a turning point. The bond they had nurtured was now strong enough to face the future with confidence, yet gentle enough to allow for growth, discovery, and the natural unfolding of life together. They had learned that love is not always immediate or dramatic, but is instead built through intentional care, patience, and a shared commitment to face life's journey side by side. And with that understanding, they moved forward. Ready to embrace the next chapter of their story together, the seasons began to change. And with each passing month, their bond grew stronger and more comforting. What had started as chance encounters and simple conversations had transformed into a deep connection grounded in understanding, care, and shared experiences. Their love had moved beyond the uncertainty of beginnings and the challenges of growing together, and now settled into a rhythm that felt like home. Mornings became special in subtle ways. A cup of coffee shared quietly before the world fully woke, a gentle message sent to remind the other that they were thinking of them, or even a small smile exchanged across a crowded street. It was not about grand gestures or elaborate declarations, but about presence, attentiveness, and the quiet assurance that each was there for the other. They had learned that these small moments were the building blocks of lasting love. They continued to explore life together, finding joy in ordinary activities, a walk through a familiar neighborhood, the discovery of a hidden park, or attending a small local event became opportunities to deepen their connection. Each shared experience, no matter how simple, reinforced their understanding of each other and strengthened the trust they had cultivated over time. Even on difficult days, when work was demanding or life brought unexpected challenges, they found ways to support one another. A comforting word, a shared laugh, or even just sitting quietly together provided reassurance and stability. Their relationship had grown to a point where it could withstand stress and uncertainty, providing a safe haven in a world that often felt unpredictable. One evening, as the city lights began to glow against the darkening sky, they sat on a bench, overlooking a calm river. The water reflected the soft shimmer of the streetlights, creating a serene scene that mirrored the quiet satisfaction they felt in each other's company. She leaned slightly against him, and he wrapped an arm around her, a simple gesture that spoke volumes about their closeness. "I've been thinking about how much has changed," she said softly. "From those first chance meetings to now, it feels like a lifetime, but in a good way." He nodded, his eyes following the gentle movement of the water. "It does. Every step we took, even the small ones, mattered. I've learned a lot about patience, understanding, and what it means to truly care for someone." She smiled, the warmth in her expression matching the calm around them. "I feel the same. I never thought love could be like this. Not dramatic, not rushed, but steady, real, and comforting. I feel safe with you, and that means everything." They sat in silence for a while, letting the moment sink in. Words were unnecessary. The comfort of each other's presence, the mutual understanding, and the unspoken commitment were enough to convey the depth of their feelings. Over the next few months, their relationship continued to grow, not through sudden events or external changes, but through the consistent practice of care, attentiveness, and mutual respect. They celebrated small milestones, such as the completion of a challenging project, a shared accomplishment, or simply the ability to spend uninterrupted time together. Each of these moments reinforced the value of their connection and the joy found in each other's presence. They also began to plan for the future in thoughtful, deliberate ways. Discussions about life goals, aspirations, and shared dreams became common. They approached these conversations with openness and honesty, acknowledging both hopes and fears. Through this process, they discovered new dimensions of understanding and trust, deepening the bond that had been nurtured over time. One weekend, they decided to take a trip to a quiet countryside village, a place neither had visited before. The journey itself became a shared adventure, filled with laughter, curiosity, and small discoveries. They explored winding paths, small local markets, and scenic views, savoring the joy of experiencing something new together. The trip was not just an escape from routine, but a meaningful opportunity to strengthen their connection through shared experiences. During a quiet evening in the village, they found a small, unassuming cafe with a view of the sunset. They sat together, sipping warm drinks, and talked about everything and nothing. It was a conversation filled with honesty, humor, reflection, and quiet moments of appreciation. They shared thoughts about their pasts, dreams for the future, and the simple pleasures they found in the present. In these moments, their love was expressed not through words alone, but through attention, understanding, and the comfort of shared presence. Returning to the city, their connection had grown into a steady and reliable source of strength. Life continued to bring challenges, both small and large, but they faced them together. Equipped with the lessons learned from previous struggles, their ability to communicate openly, listen empathetically, and offer support without judgment became the cornerstone of their enduring relationship. They discovered the joy of creating small traditions and routines together. Whether it was a particular cafe they visited weekly, a special walk in the park, or even a shared evening ritual of tea and conversation, these practices reinforced their bond and provided stability amidst the unpredictability of life. The ordinary became extraordinary through the lens of shared experience and mutual care. As their relationship matured, they also found ways to support each other's personal growth, encouraging one another to pursue individual goals. Offering advice when asked, and celebrating achievements together strengthened both their independence and their unity. They understood that a healthy relationship required balance, being together while respecting each other's individuality. One evening, after a long day filled with minor challenges, they returned home and sat quietly in their living room. The space was simple but warm, filled with the comfort of familiarity and the presence of each other. She looked at him and said softly, "I never imagined love could feel like this. It's steady, gentle, and real. I feel like I've found something rare." He reached for her hand, holding it with care. "I feel the same. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's about being here, together, through everything life brings. That's what makes it special." They shared a long, quiet moment, appreciating the depth of their connection and the journey that had brought them here. It was a love built on patience, trust, understanding, and the consistent practice of care qualities that had transformed ordinary moments into a shared life of meaning and joy. The months that followed continued to be filled with these simple yet profound experiences. They faced occasional challenges as any life together would, but the foundation of their love allowed them to navigate difficulties with grace and mutual respect. They learned to compromise, to listen deeply, and to offer support without expecting anything in return. Their relationship was marked not by drama, but by the steady accumulation of moments that mattered. They also began to dream together more concretely, envisioning a life where they could continue to grow both individually and as a couple. These conversations were filled with hope, practicality, and a shared commitment to support each other's aspirations. They planned for small adventures, personal achievements, and the ongoing cultivation of their connection, understanding that love requires both attention and intention. In quiet evenings, they often reflected on their journey. From chance encounters and casual conversations to the deep, steady love they now shared, they appreciated how each step, each moment, had contributed to the richness of their relationship. They recognized that the beauty of love lies not in grandeur, but in the consistency of care, the willingness to be present, and the choice to nurture one another every day. By the end of this chapter of their story, they had built a life together filled with trust, joy, and mutual respect. Their love was not about perfection, but about authenticity, patience, and the quiet happiness that comes from knowing someone truly understands and supports you. They had learned that the most beautiful romances are not always dramatic or flashy. They are steady, real, and built through shared experiences and unwavering commitment. In the calm of a late evening, As they sat together watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, they felt a profound sense of contentment. Their journey had not been easy, but it had been real, patient, and deeply rewarding. They had chosen each other again and again, in moments large and small, and in that choice, they found a love that was enduring, comforting, and truly beautiful as they held hands and watched the world around them. There was an unspoken understanding that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Their love had grown from quiet beginnings into a steady, resilient force, a true testament to the power of patience, empathy, and the gentle, enduring choice to be there for one another. And in that shared presence, they found the most beautiful romance of all, one that would continue to grow and flourish through every day they spent side by side. Life moved forward gently, and their connection continued to deepen in subtle, meaningful ways. After the steadying foundation of their love in the previous months, they now found themselves exploring new dimensions of their relationship, understanding more about each other, sharing dreams, and creating a life that reflected both their individuality and their union. Mornings began with quiet rituals, small but significant. They would share breakfast, preparing simple meals together, laughing at minor mistakes in cooking, or discussing plans for the day ahead. These mornings were never rushed. They allowed themselves to exist in the moment, appreciating the shared time without the intrusion of outside concerns. It was in these small, everyday moments that their connection felt strongest, built on consistency and genuine care as they navigated their individual responsibilities. They also sought ways to support each other's personal growth. He encouraged her pursuits, whether professional goals or personal hobbies, offering support without judgment or expectation. She, in turn, found ways to appreciate and affirm his efforts, creating an environment of mutual encouragement. Together, they realized that a strong relationship was not about merging entirely, but about respecting and nurturing each other's individuality. While moving forward as a unit on weekends, they often explored areas of the city they had not yet discovered. Walking through quiet streets, small parks, or local markets became adventures in discovery, filled with shared laughter, curiosity, and mutual appreciation. Each outing, no matter how simple, provided an opportunity to learn more about each other, to appreciate differences, and to strengthen the bond that had been steadily growing. One evening, as the sun began to set, they found themselves sitting by a quiet pond in a small park. The sky turned shades of pink and gold, reflected softly in the still water. They sat side by side, the world around them quiet and calm, a perfect backdrop for reflection and connection. "I've been thinking about how far we've come," she said quietly, her gaze fixed on the reflection of the sky and the water. "From the first time we met to now, it feels like a journey I never expected, but one I am so glad to be on with you." He looked at her, warmth in his eyes. "I feel the same. It's been steady, patient, and real. That's what I value most, how genuine and comfortable it is to be with you." It doesn't need to be dramatic or rushed to matter. They held hands, fingers intertwined, letting the moment speak for itself. There were no words necessary to convey the depth of feeling that had grown between them. Their love had matured into a gentle, reliable force, providing strength and comfort in equal measure. In addition to shared quiet moments, they discovered joy in collaborating on small projects together. Decorating a living space, planning small trips, or even organizing a simple dinner for friends became meaningful experiences. Each project, no matter how ordinary, became an opportunity to observe, understand, and appreciate each other's habits, preferences, and thought processes. Through these shared experiences, they learned patience, compromise, and the subtle art of coexistence. They also dedicated time to understanding the deeper aspects of each other's personalities. Conversations became more thoughtful, reflecting not only present experiences, but also past memories and future aspirations. She shared stories of childhood, detailing small events that had shaped her values and outlook. He recounted experiences that had influenced his approach to life, emphasizing lessons of patience, observation, and the importance of calm reflection. These discussions deepened their emotional intimacy, reinforcing the trust that had been nurtured over time. Challenges continued to arise, as life rarely allows a smooth path. Work pressures, unexpected responsibilities, and occasional misunderstandings tested their patience and communication. Yet each challenge became an opportunity to reinforce their bond. They learned to approach difficulties with calm, to listen without judgment, to offer support in practical and meaningful ways. The resilience of their relationship was not born from dramatic gestures, but from the steady, persistent practice of understanding and empathy. One particularly quiet evening, they found themselves sitting on the balcony of a small apartment overlooking the city. The streets below were calm, bathed in soft light from street lamps. They sipped tea, the warmth of the cups mirrored by the warmth between them. "I like how we've learned to handle life together," she said thoughtfully. "It's not perfect, but it feels balanced, safe, and I appreciate that more than anything." He nodded, smiling gently. "Yes, it's about understanding each other's rhythms, being patient, and offering support when needed. That's what makes it meaningful. It's consistent, reliable, and genuine." Their connection extended beyond shared routines to mutual support and personal growth. He encouraged her to take on challenges she might have avoided alone, offering reassurance without overstepping. She provided thoughtful insights when he faced decisions, helping him see new perspectives. These acts, small but meaningful, deepened their interdependence in a way that was healthy and sustaining. In addition to personal growth, they sought experiences that allowed them to engage with the wider world together. Volunteering for local projects, participating in community events, or simply helping friends in need became opportunities to extend their shared values beyond their private life. They discovered that shared purpose strengthened their bond, giving their relationship a sense of purpose and alignment with the broader world around them as time moved on. They also developed small, comforting traditions. A particular cafe for weekend breakfasts, a favorite spot for evening walks, or a specific way of sharing tea and conversation in the evenings became rituals that reinforced their connection. These patterns, though simple, provided a rhythm to their lives and a sense of continuity that made even ordinary days feel special. Through these months, they celebrated small milestones, appreciating achievements in work, personal endeavors, and shared experiences. They did not wait for grand events to express joy. Instead, they found significance in daily successes, shared laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Each milestone, no matter how minor, became part of the mosaic of their life together. In the evenings, they often reflected on their journey. The path from their initial meetings to this stage of mature, patient love had been gradual but deliberate.